Welcome to the Explosive Strength Podcast with Jared Bidney. On today's episode, I am going to be talking with Zach Laskey. Zach's trained with me since he was a sophomore in high school, went off to play college football at Georgia Tech. He went from Georgia Tech to the LA Rams, or St. Louis Rams at that time.
St. Louis, and then we moved to LA. So
you can talk about the transition from there, from point A to point B. But anyway, here we go with Zach Laskey. Hey, Zach, we was talking about this a little earlier. I looked on YouTube the other day, and I saw a picture of you jumping at the gym, and I noticed it 9 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe that, it's been 9 years, and we've been together through, everything for 9 years. I mean, that puts me back to, 16, 17-year-old kid.
Yeah, and now you have a wife and kid.
Yeah, life changes fast. I'll tell you what, though, when I first saw the video, I didn't even recognize. I was like, that's me. I look so small. And
yeah, you're like, man, that kid's actually tall.
Kid looks pretty good.
Oh, man. Yeah, you were just a sophomore. And so that's just kind of crazy how time has flown by. I can remember the first time your dad called me, and I was actually sitting on my back porch, and I was just answering questions that later on I knew. I was like, damn, I didn't talk to this dude an hour and a half.
Yeah. I mean, until this day, my dad still would sit and talk to you about that just because all the information you know.
Yeah. And so I thought that was just funny. Your dad talked, and as we went through this process from college to NFL, we would still just sit there and just talk, and we'd even talk about the old days.
Oh, I know. I mean, like I said, even if we go and train in the present, he'll sit there and say, hey, you remember when you taught Zach this and how that worked? Or he'll ask you questions. Hey, what does he need to do? Especially when I was in high school, he'd say, when we're coming here, what is this? What is the purpose of this drill? What is the purpose of this lift? How is this going to affect them? And, because, I was always pretty coachable, but we don't know why. It's good to know why you're doing something. That way you can really see what the purpose is. And you were always good at,
trying to explain that. If I could teach them, I feel that they'll drive harder and to get it, because I was actually explaining to the basketball players today at Clayton State as to why we jump with the weights.
Right.
I said you can't. It's just I've heard this time and time before, but I was able to put it in context with them. I said, if I set you 50 feet away from a glass wall, and I give you a wiffle ball, and you could throw that wiffle ball as hard as you wanted to, and it would not have enough weight to get to the wall to break the glass.
Right.
But if I gave you a bowling ball and I try to get it, it would be too heavy, so the weight for that is too heavy. And so then I said, if I give you a baseball, it's got the optimal mass to weight ratio. And so then you go right through the glass.
Right.
I said, so when we're jumping with weights, it's kind of like you're jumping with your body weight. You're not going to improve your vertical jumping with body weight alone. I said you have to have optimal weight loaded against your body, which is your external resistance, so that we can produce a lot more force. But then again, if we're jumping with dumbbells that are too heavy, we'll still have the same effect as if we were throwing a bowling ball. So it would go nowhere if the weight was too light or if the weight was too heavy.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So I kind of went in that with them. And people think a lot of the strength conditioning places are pretty much the same.
Right.
You've been at the gym and other gyms and played 4 years of college football, and you're in the NFL. You've also had teammates train in other places in preparation for their pro day, and you had better numbers than them. So you've had better numbers. You've been with me for a while, and you've also experienced different things. You've experienced high school level, collegiate level, professional level. How would you say the gym is different from everything else?
Well, that's a great question. So, I think the very first place I ever started training at was actually Velocity. I don't know if you remember. It actually was over right where your gym's at now. It used to be. So, I mean, I went there, and, I've been training. I love being in the gym. I love, trying to get better. I always have. It's always been fun for me and just to compete. But, when I went there, it was broken down into 3 30-minute segments. The first 30 minutes was straight stretching. And, every day it was the same routine. Then you did speed work like plyometrics, but it was really generic stuff there. And so after, a year or two, I think that would have been up until maybe my freshman year. And then I'd stop. I just did the generic high school workouts and until, I met Chris, or, me and Chris were friends, and his dad told my dad and was like, hey, you got to check this guy out. Chris is really seeing some results. But like I was telling you earlier, I think the biggest thing is when you get on a high school, even at high school level, college level, pro level, the programs that the strength coaches provide are more generic based for 100 plus guys. So when you're at there, I mean, you can get good workouts, but it's really hard unless you go off and do a little extra at the end to really make gains and see results. Because a program for I'm a mid skill guy, big skill, medium skill guy. Well, that's linebackers, fullbacks, running backs, defensive ends. Well, a defensive end can be 6'5", 290, and I could be 6'3", 215, and we're doing the same exact workout when he might need something different, where I might need something different, where I'm weaker in areas. So when you come to your gym, usually you when you go to other places, you get just, here's your workout, just do it, But when you come to your gym, it's like, hey, we're going to do this for this reason. It's going to correlate this way, and this is how it's going to be. I think a lot of places are just, people coaches kind of say, hey, this is what I want to coach. I'm going to coach. I'm going to be this type of coach. We're going to do, I'm going to be a power clean guy, Olympic lift. That's all we're going to do is Olympic lifts. Well, when we came to your gym, like we were saying earlier, 9 years ago, we're looking at the drills. We're doing completely different things than we do today in the gym. Mm-hmm. So, you've kind of adapt as you go. And it was always like, there have been times where I've questioned, I'm like, why are we changing this? I'm getting better doing this. And you're like, just trust me, Zach. Just trust me. You got to trust me. Yeah,
because you didn't trust the jump man at first either, did you?
No. I mean, honest to God, I really did. And I'm like, getting ready to train, trying to make it to the NFL. I'm like,
what the hell is he doing with this mat?
Why are we doing that when we're going to be jumping on that? And I didn't realize that really what the mat shows you, it teaches you how to push, like really push for power, because when you're using that, it goes up by half-inch increments. So and you got to jump up, and a lot of people swing their arms, they swat at it, they don't hit it right.
So we had the vertex, but that's where you wanted to swing because you thought you had to practice what you did.
Right.
But once I got you into beating those numbers, if you jumped to 31.2, you knew if you pushed a little harder,
you can get a 31.5.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we did. Me and Jared would push every single day, and it would just be, my agent told me, hey, you can go train at other places. I'll pay for whatever. I could have went wherever I wanted to go, but I wanted to go to Jared because I knew that Jared's going to take the time to personalize something and really get me where I need to go. Like I said, when I first came in, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do the jump, man. I just don't want to do it.
Yeah, because you don't really see it correlating.
Right. And I'm like, we only have 3 months, 2.5 months to really, grind after it. I'm like, that made me nervous. But, Jared's like, trust me, let's do it. You're like, come on, we got this.
Longoria didn't want to do it either when we was prepping him for his basketball pro day. So,
and I ended up jumping. I think I tied, the highest at pro day at Georgia Tech. So
yeah, and you jumped to 35.1 on the mat, and you jumped to 35 flat at your pro day, right?
It correlated. Remember how nervous I was there? I was like, I hope this correlates. I'm going to be nervous if I jump at 32 or something.
And we went through the same thing with Mike. It's just funny, and the National Strength Conditioning Association just correlated it last year, saying how similar they were. But I think people have learned how to cheat the mat and things like that. But if you're training right, and
right,
we did go over the vertex to make sure your arm swing was going to be right.
Right.
But we have to train on the mat. That way you can have a direct number to beat.
Right.
Instead of man, did I swing too early? Did I swing too late? Your swing can be off with the vertex, so you're kind of be questioning yourself there. Where if you jump a 31.1. A little harder, I can get a 31.5.
Right.
And so,
I even look back at the, that first day when we were training. Now I had basketball tennis shoes on the first day. Like not really, I didn't really have my training shoes on, but I looked at the push when I thought I was giving max effort, and I look at it and I'm like, wow, that's not good. It does not look good. But you kind of taught me, like, look, when you get down there, you got to push. Like you got to really try to push, and you got to feel that. And I think when you're at the Vertimax, you're looking up at it like, okay, I got to jump up and reach that. But when you're looking on the jump mat, you don't have anything to reach. You're like, I just got to push as hard as I can and just go.
Yeah. The whole reason I bought the jump mats, because when I would have people do depth jumps at the gym, they would jump down and jump back up. And I said, y'all are not jumping, you're hopping.
Right.
And they looked at me like I'm crazy. I said, y'all don't even know how to freaking try. And they didn't. No one understands. Like you said, you didn't understand when you first started jumping, because I recorded that first day jumping with the dumbbells.
Right.
And you watch it. You turn around and look at that video again. You're like,
that's not the effort I want to be putting out there.
Yeah.
I'm not. That's not good. I truly believe like that is, because 4 years at Georgia Tech, my vertical might have went up an inch.
Yeah, and y'all did power. I talked about this before. We did power cleans. We don't do power cleans at the gym,
right?
But you've done power cleans for 4 years at Tech.
Yeah, I've done power cleans my whole life. I've always been, the way I was told why we do power cleans is, you kind of get that you roll your hips like you're running through somebody, or you're drive blocking somebody, or you're coming up to tackle somebody, you're trying to explode through, but until you really look at how you're jumping, when you're jumping, you're still extending those hips. When you look at the videos you post, every athlete, when they're jumping at the top, when you freeze those photos, their hips are rolled through, they're all the way up. And, as far as getting your vertical better, I think that's, the best method.
Yeah, and it also helped correlate with the running speed. We got down to a 1:6:1:10 at the gym, and it was probably faster at your pro day, right?
Right. I think I ran a 1:59.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about your journey to Tech. I think it was Buzz Preston that was visiting the school.
Right.
When you were there, is that who was kind of?
So yeah, Buzz Preston is the recruiting coordinator for our area. And actually, fellow high school teammate Jeff Green, he had already signed with Georgia Tech, and the whole reason they really, became interested in me is because they were here to see Jeff, and they kind of saw me play on the field, and like, okay, this kid can play. And they would always tell me, keep waiting. I'm sure I was probably one of the down the line guys, because in recruiting, that's how they have their, hey, we really want to get this kid, but if this kid falls through, hey, this is the next guy we want to get. So I'm sure I was one of those, hey, this is going to be the next guy, hey, that we'll get. But, when the time came, I had done enough on the field and posted numbers. I actually went to Georgia Tech's camp my junior year. And when I went there, we had been training and doing all that stuff. When I went there, I think I ran a 4.59 as a junior in high school, which pretty good. I remember they took me to this, they took like maybe like 5 or 6 kids, and we ran and did extra routes, and we did a little extra testing, and we they kind of wanted to see our football skills at that point. But like I say, if I wasn't able to run that fast or post some of those numbers, I wouldn't even have the opportunity to showcase my football skills. So it all correlates together.
Now, yeah, and I think correlate. You benched 315 that day when Buzz was there.
Yep.
And so we went from, when you started, was it
245? 245. I remember I maxed out at 245, and that was maybe a month or 2 months right before I started working with you. And then I remember, I went from 245 to 315, and
it was like real quick.
Real quick,
like a 3-month period, something like that.
Not even 3 months. So coach was like, "Oh, hey, you're not doing anything like illegal or anything." I'm like, "Hard work, baby. I'm working my tail off." And Buzz wasn't actually there to see it, but I remember we maxed out that day, and coach was like, because I remember Buzz was like, "Yeah, I heard you maxed out 315 today." I was like, "Yes, sir." He's like, "That's great." At that time, I don't think there was a whole lot of kids in high school benching 315.
Yeah, and
it's a little different now.
Yeah.
Well, now everybody at your gym benches the house. So
yeah, I think I told someone the other day I've had, I think it was 8 or 9 high schoolers that have benched 405 or more.
That's incredible.
And I've had 3 high schoolers squat 600 plus. I've had 4 total athletes squat 600. I was trying to get Spieka to squat 700 this summer, but he had to go back to school early. And so when he came back, it was not where it wanted to be. But I would have had my first 700-pound squatter. But Spieka also ran a 4.940
that's incredible.
At 280 pounds.
Yeah.
And he had a 33-inch vertical. I just wish people would realize that if they do right and they put the work in, they get something out of it. It's got to be directed training.
Well, especially with today, I see a lot of kids and a lot of athletes who, they want to work hard for 1 week and see results immediately. But, in anything you do in life, that's just not how it works. You got to grind hard and you got to stick through it. And,
Yeah, the fun part's getting started.
Right.
But after you start getting started and get some results,
right.
then you kind of lose, okay, all right, I got these results. Now what's next?
Right. Like I think a lot of kids need to break it down to mini goals. Like if you want to say, hey, I want to run a 4.5 and you're running a 4.9, like each month you should say, I want to try to get a tenth of a second off. And then, but you can't get complacent. I mean, I think if you get to, a lot of kids are like, okay, or even if they're like, okay, I want to get to a 4.8 next month, they get there. They're like, okay, I'm going to run a 4.8 for the rest of my life now just because I did it one time.
Yeah, they
That's
don't realize
just not how it works.
Yeah, you got to, sometimes if you want to get to a 4.8, you may have to get to a 4.6. So if you
Right.
stop training, you still run a 4.8.
Exactly.
You got to go beyond where you want to be. And coaches, even when you was in high school, gave you crap about coming to the gym.
Well, they did, not me personally, but here was that they all the coaches, they were like, look, I remember they were like, hey, we don't care that you're going to another gym, but you have to do, the school workouts too. So I was always fine with that because I always did the school workouts, and coach knew that I was never going to miss anything. I never missed any workouts. I never missed anything, and I'd always work out, practice, and then I'd be at your gym.
Yeah, and I tell people this a lot too, and I don't even know if you even remember this, but one day in the second gym,
Mm-hmm.
you swooped in and you said, I got a squat. Then after you squatted, you left because you had to be in Atlanta.
Yep.
And I tell people, I said, most people would just skip the gym because you had to be in Atlanta a short period of time. You just came long enough to get that squat
Right.
in and out, and then you left. And instead of, just bypassing it and shucking it off for the day, you knew what you had to do to get better. So you
Right.
came and did it. Even if it was not a full workout, you did what was necessary to get from point A to point B.
Make sure I was still staying on track, and that's because when I get there, you break it down. Like, look, you can't miss workouts. You just can't. And fortunately, my parents were always willing and able to take me and get me there and get me places I needed. And I had them. They pushed me hard. My dad pushed me. My dad. He pushes me hard. So
they just want the best for you. And sometimes when you're young, you don't know it. And so I see nowadays these parents are allowing the kid to make decisions. Hey, do you want to do this?
Right.
It ain't whether you want to do this or not. If you want your kid to be good,
Mm-hmm.
he needs to do this.
Yeah. But ultimately though, you're gonna have to find kids who really want to do it.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, then they're not going to get the results. If you get kids who just don't care, ultimately they're just not going to care. They're not going to get where they need to be.
Yeah. And so eventually I'm going to make the gym a little bit more strict, and start limiting people. It needs to be a place to where people like you, we need to have a common goal, and that's to get better.
Right.
We're not a recreational training facility.
Right.
If you're going to have an average person, you're going to get average results.
Right.
And the average results not going to get you to the college you want to. If you want to go play college football, if you want to play college baseball, and if you want to make it to the professional rankings, you need to have in your head, I've got to get this and I got to get it done. I tell people, it's like sometimes with diet, you may not want to drink that shake.
Right.
You may not want to eat that food, but if you want that goal, that's what you're going to have to do.
I mean, look, my mom, I was fortunate enough, she packed my lunch for me. When I was trying to gain weight, I was at protein shake in the morning, 4 peanut butter and jellies for lunch. That was just to get started. Then I still had, all these drinks and snacks, and then a protein shake at night before I went to bed. And I still struggled to put weight on. And I remember there were some times where I literally felt like I was going to puke, but I was like, I got to get it down because I got to try to pick up weight. It's just kind of how, like you said, you just got to do it. It's not always fun.
No.
And it's like I tell kids, I understand. Like I've been there. Like there are days, not just with weight room, but like practice where you're just like, I don't want to be here. I don't. It's normal to feel that sometimes. Like I just really want to take the day off.
Yeah.
But you got to push through.
I had to get to practice, and I would hate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean everybody, and I think that's normal. I really do. I think that's normal. I think And sometimes, you I don't want to say you just get through, but you push. I always should try to, get myself fired up and kind of, give myself a little self-talk to keep myself going.
Yeah, we did that while we were training. We'll get into that in a minute, but what was it like at Georgia Tech? How did your strength compare to others when you got there, and how do you think you were as far as a strength athlete?
Well, my strength when I got there, I was always relatively one of the strongest. Actually, my senior year, I actually won the Iron Jacket, so that's a combination of all 3 lifts, the broad jump, the vertical, the shuttles, basically all combine drills, and a little bit of football skills. And I ended up, finishing first for the medium skill. So I actually, when you go up there, my name's actually still on the board.
Oh, that's
out
really
there. So it's fun. It's fun to
yeah, you
compete.
And what you did is you've seen your hard work pay off.
Right.
Then everybody else is going to see Zach Laskey. If you see somebody on the wall, a kid at that level is going to look, who's this guy? What did he do?
Right.
How can I be? Because you're always looking for that next great person. And so if you're ahead of someone like that, you don't even know who you're inspiring. You probably get a lot of people come up to you and say, man, Zach, I really like you and I really look up to you for what you do,
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of it too is like, it goes back to having the guys that, want to compete. When you have those in college, everybody wants to compete. So when you have a bunch of guys competing, ultimately everybody raises their level. So I had a lot of guys who were right on my heels, pushing me just to, all right, well, shoot. I remember after lifting, I had a couple buddies, like, all right, we're going to do a couple extra sets of, shoulders or buys. I'm like, well, I'm jumping in. I can't let you get ahead of me.
How did the strength help you with your football?
Really, for me, I didn't redshirt my freshman year, so a lot of guys get a little extra year to, kind of gain that weight. But really, I guess I would say just running through tackles and, finishing runs, because I played running back, B-back for Georgia Tech, and one thing I always took pride in was always falling forward and never letting the one guy tackle me. I always wanted to take pride in, hey, it's going to take at least 2 people to get me down.
What were some of your favorite memories playing at Tech?
I would definitely, my very first carry at Georgia Tech at home. My first start was against Virginia Tech at Virginia Tech, but my very first carry at Georgia Tech went for like a 56-yard touchdown run. That was my first carry in Bobby Dodd Stadium. My very first reception in Bobby Dodd Stadium went for 70-yard touchdown. So those are 2 of my favorite. And then my senior year, for 3 seasons, I never beaten Miami, Virginia Tech, or Georgia. And my senior year, we beat all 3 of those teams and Clemson. And then we ended up, beating Mississippi State in the Orange Bowl and finishing with an 11-3 record.
Yeah, you had a really good game against Georgia, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What did you do? Score 3 touchdowns?
3 touchdowns and 140 yards.
And the Miami game was critical?
Miami game, I didn't score, but I rushed for like 130 yards.
And that's a heck of a career.
I mean, I love it. I'll always remember that, and those are memories that I'll carry with me for a lifetime.
But you're kind of like me in our thought process. We worked out together. We've got a proven wrong mentality. A lot of people had doubts in you.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember. I think I still have screenshots when I committed to Georgia Tech. Actually, they're from Georgia fans. To hell with Georgia, by the way, if any Georgia listeners out there. But they were like, "Oh, this kid will never be the difference maker Tech needs." So it felt really good to kind of stick it to Georgia.
At the end, you were
right. And it takes time. I knew coming out, I had all the skill sets, and I had the abilities from training with you. I had the numbers that you needed to be a big time recruit, but I never really got the respect. So that kind of, like you said, it kind of gives you play with a chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we roll into the training for your pro day.
Mm-hmm.
You even had some doubt from Georgia Tech people.
Yeah.
Getting ready to go to the Rams.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Well, I think a lot of people said, "Hey, I don't know if you're." I had a lot of people say, "I didn't realize that you were that athletic, and you could do all those things after pro day." And I was like, "Well, unfortunately, a lot of people always thought that." But I ended up after pro day. I heard from like 30 teams out of 32 teams, and so I knew I thought I had a shot to get drafted. Unfortunately, I went undrafted. But
Yeah, Dan Rooney called you the next day on his personal cell phone, say, Zach,
yeah,
you know.
yeah, and for me, I was born in Pittsburgh and lived there until I was 7, so I've always been a Steeler fan. So for me, that was really exciting. And then as the weeks go, you get phone calls from teams asking you, hey, we want to come work you out, privately. I did a private workout for the Patriots, and you're kind of just going through that process. It's just a cool experience. And definitely nerve wracking though too, because you're like, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know where I'm gonna end up.
And they don't let you know at all either what's happening.
No.
Now, we had that, because you had the doubters and stuff like that. We had that prove them wrong mentality,
Right.
We would come in and I would actually jump with you with dumbbells. I did the exact same stuff you did because at first I was ahead of you. I jumped higher than you, and I jumped higher than you with weight. Mm-hmm. And you said, I ain't let this old guy beat me.
Heck no. And like you said, you need that. I need someone, like, you need to have someone that's going to be able to push you. And, like, you had the same exact mentality where, we'd come in and one day, towards the middle and the end, it would be one day, you'd be a little bit ahead of me. Then the next day I'd get you. And
Mm-hmm.
then you'd be like, nope, no, sir, I'm coming back. And you'd get me. And it kind of went that way until we were both. By the time, it's crazy because by the time I left to go to St. Louis, me and you were both jumping 38-inch vertical.
Yeah.
And if you would have told me that at like 230 pounds I'd be jumping a 38-inch vertical, I'd have said, heck no.
Yeah, because I've told people on the other podcasts that I've done, you went to a 35. Mm-hmm. But after your pro date, you didn't stop training.
No, we kept going.
We kept grinding.
And with your training program, what was different, just from talking to other guys who train at other places, other places were afraid to push guys and say, hey, you're going to when we're box squatting and we're pushing using the tender unit, which, by the way, I always tell all the strength coaches now, tender unit's one of my favorite tools.
It made squatting more valuable, more valid.
Well, you understand, hey, like before, you think I think I'm trying hard and I'm pushing. But then when you really see it, it's like, oh, I really got to push if I want to, get these numbers. And I think that's a great tool. I think every strength coach should, own a tender unit and really, monitor it at least once a week. Let them get under there and just see it because you need to see that.
Yeah, because it really helps that visual feedback per rep. Mm-hmm. Like I would take the tender unit, turn it away from some kids, and see what their normal squatting. Then I turn it back to them. Then I'd say, hey, now let's try to move it a little quicker. And they see, I said, that's what we're going to have to do. You just don't sit over here and squat to be squatting. You got to squat for speed.
Right. And I just remember, getting there and I'm thinking, I'm doing 315 and I'm like, wow, I'm actually not moving the bar very fast at all for where I'm trying to get to. I was like, man, I felt like I could push the weight a little bit faster. But by the end, you got me moving same speed at, higher weight.
You got to 405. I think
Right.
you actually moved 405 maybe at a 6'1" and 315. I think you may have been exactly. I don't have your folder here, so I don't know. But what we did is and on the jumps, if I would beat you, I'd be like, damn, Zach, why do I got to beat you?
Right.
But some days I was down in the dumps and you would try to bring me up.
Right.
And when you were down, I was trying to bring you up and we would go turn on what song you?
Throw
I always throw it up.
Throw it up. And I liked Outside
by
Calvin Harris.
And
Ellie Goulding, I think.
Yeah, Ellie Goulding. That was your go-to song.
I don't know. That thing made me sore. It made me go.
But yeah, we would talk to each other. We weren't looking on our cell phones. We weren't on our cell phones when we were training.
No, and that like it's crazy. And I like to listen, put headphones in when I train now. Now that I'm done playing, I'm really just trying to stay physically active. So when Max gets older, I can play with him and help him train and show him like necessary, teach him the basic skills. But I try not to have my cell phone on me just because. You go to a gym and you see people always on their cell phone. It's like, how are you going to stay focused and, stay locked in for an hour and a half, however long it takes you to get your workout done, if you're going to be on your phone, flipping through. I see people get on Twitter, Instagram, and all that. And I'm not going to say I've never done that because sometimes when I'm just working out now, not training. I'm working out more so. I see myself do that. I'm like, all right, put the phone down. Let's focus. Let's go. Let's get better. Let's win the day.
Yeah, you shouldn't be worried about your phone. If you're trying to break a jump number, you need to break a jump number.
Right.
And whatever we would try to break jump numbers,
Mm-hmm.
Tendo unit numbers on with the Tendo, and we'd also do tread sled. You got up to one of the fastest tread sleds at the gym too.
Right. And I you know what I also loved is at the gym you had that record board. So it's like, all right, what can I get now? There was always guys who were stronger than me lifting wise, but I knew as far as the running and as far as the jumping, I could, maybe not the vertical, but the broad and the 40, I knew I can get to.
Yeah. What was your pro day? I think you were top 5 of every category for the pro day too.
I think
out
I was
of total NFL, right?
Right. I think I was, but I had a grade 3 AC joint separation like week 6 or 7.
Oh yeah, because
so
when we didn't train for the bench during this whole time. We just focused on the.
Well, we did a little bit. We did, and because I remember I couldn't really bench at all. Like I really wasn't able to bench because my shoulder was just so messed up. But I was still able to get 19, which wasn't a bad number.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I would have been able to do it, I bet you I probably would have gotten.
Yeah,
we were finishing at 26, 27 by the end of it.
Yeah, because then we went from moving 315 for 2 to moving 365 for 2 on your bench after the pro day was over. We really grinded on it because
right.
you knew you was getting the phone calls. You're like, man, I got to stay on top of this.
Gotta go.
The one thing I remember after your pro day, I was sitting there watching on TV and I heard on Twitter or whatever. I said, Zach, that's one of the best compliments you could have ever got in your life. After you ran your 40, there was a video on Twitter and the guy goes, shit. And I said, that's probably the best compliment you could ever get. You ran a 4.55 and a 4.5 flat your pro day at 200. What'd you weigh in? 235?
I think I weighed 225.
225?
Yeah, which was the biggest I'd ever been at the time.
Yeah, so you done got to where you're jumping higher, running faster.
At a heavier weight.
Yeah, that's
than I ever been.
Explain draft day. Draft day for you was pretty special because you were also graduating at the same time.
Right. So I was sitting in like the first 3 rows. Maybe the first row. I can't. Vaguely, I think I was maybe in the first or second row. But I had to keep my cell phone on me because if someone called, I needed to make sure I can answer. It was the day 3 of the draft where they're doing 5th, 6th, and 7th round, and I thought maybe I had a chance to get drafted in the 7th round. Well, it was like the beginning of the 7th round. I actually received a phone call from the Tennessee Titans, and it wasn't the head coach, but it was the running back coach. He's like, hey, we really like you. We want to have you. Hopefully, we'll be able to draft you, but if not, we want you to come right after. So, of course, I took the phone call, and I could see President Bud Peterson looking at me, and he kind of – I was trying not to be rude because I don't want to take away anything from, my classmates who worked very hard to get their degrees. It's hard to get a degree at Tech, but, everybody around me, I told them, hey, if my phone rings, I'm not trying to be rude, but I got to pick it up. And ultimately, I ended up getting another phone call from St. Louis at the time, and after talking with my agent, that looked like a better fit for me as an undrafted route. And fortunately, he was right, and I was able to stick around for a few years.
Yeah, I think it was there 3 years.
3 years.
You got to go through the whole transition of a team moving. Mm-hmm. That's an experience people don't get. And you were also on Hard Knocks, and you were actually shown a lot.
Yeah, I got a little bit of TV time. We did the grip
thing with the football.
Yeah.
What about explain that? What was it like having Hard Knocks around?
It was cool. The one thing I'll say is, fans may disagree, but when you're living through that, and they're showing clips, it's like, now after being through it, it's like, wow, this is reality TV, and it's like people are loving watching a grown man's dreams getting crushed. On cut day, people love that, and I understand. It's like, oh man, like it's cool to see, but for me, it's sad to see friends and other guys who worked their whole life to get to this opportunity, get cut on cut day.
Yeah, I think you were telling me a story. You were sitting there squatting, and then you turned around. The guy was behind you, was gone.
It's cut day is one of the most tense days. We had our strength coach at the time was named Rock. We call him Rock the Reaper on cut day because he was the guy who actually would get you and say, hey, come with me. We got to get your playbook. We're going to see coach. And whenever you get that, it's not good. Actually, my rookie season, I got that the last day of cuts. Rock came up and was like, hey, Zach, grab your playbook. We need to go see coach. And, it's one of the most like defeated feelings in the world because, most of those kids who make it that far have never really not had success playing football. So you never been cut. You just been
You've
fortunate.
been the it guy on
right.
the team.
You've been the it factor for your teams. So you're like, oh man, you're walking through the locker room. Everybody sees you with Rock, so they know you're getting cut. And it's like everybody's like, oh man, hey, you never know. But Rock was, Rock really always, he was one of the strength coaches who really, all my strength coaches throughout my life have really always been great guys and really.
Yeah, I think you're one of the fourth strongest people on offense at the Rams, right?
Yeah, I mean, I remember I did the power clean, and I power cleaned some of the heaviest weights for my skill.
It's amazing your power clean went up and we didn't even power clean.
Right. Well, that's jumping though.
Yeah, well, I wish people would realize that the Olympic lifters are explosive and powerful, but they're doing explosive and powerful things to improve their Olympic lifting themselves. They're not using the Olympic lifts themselves for the power.
Right.
That's just the sport.
Yeah, and that's it paid off.
So yeah, and if you're strong, I've had other athletes go. I had two twins, Danielle and Chanel, Joe's sisters.
Yeah.
They went to Elon, which is another Division I school, and their strength coach asked them to help with the team because the girls came in so strong. I had both of those girls benching 165 at 140-pound body weight.
Well, do you remember when I first started coming to the gym? We would do GHRs.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? And everybody, I think you had my dad get up there just to show him, because my dad's like, what does that do? And I was like, Dad, it's really hard, actually. And he went up there and he couldn't do one.
Yeah.
It's like, holy cow. It felt like, it feels like your hamstrings are just grabbing you, gripping you for life. I just felt like you were always ahead of the game. Now, teams will incorporate GHR. But it seems to me that you're always one step above, for the next training cycle.
Yeah, and y'all got a pretty there's a guy at Tech that I like, Zach Reed, and he's kind of like almost the same thought process, right?
Yeah, I mean, really, Georgia Tech, all those guys are really good. But, yeah, Zach, he does a good
I don't
job.
really know the other. I just know Zach, but he seems like he's always trying. He's not scared to change. Just like me. I'm not. There's no way if I told you, if you would have came to me 9 years ago and we would start training for your pro day, it'd be totally different than it was. You came at the right times, but I've always tried to evolve my knowledge so that it's my job to help.
Right. Right.
My job was to help you be better than what I was, and what I'm good at is the weight room stuff. I eventually got you to out jump me when I was ahead of you. So I think a coach's thing is if you can make the athlete better than yourself, you're doing your job. I'm not a drill sergeant.
Right.
I'm there to help. And so once you create that buy-in, you've got that, and you can get them locked in. Then you don't have to be that guy that sits there and cuts someone down or yells at them.
Right.
But
I think with football, it's just a little different because you have so many guys.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of buy-in.
It's hard to it's really hard to individualize workouts because you have so many guys. They got classes, they got practice. You got to do their speed training for, and you can't see everything at every time. Mm-hmm. And some kids, like you said, have always been really good. They think, oh, I really don't need to do this. You see it at every level.
Well, you don't really see it. You don't really, once you get to higher level, you're like, man, I wish I would have done that a little earlier.
Right. But you still see though, some guys are just like, oh no, I'm good. I don't like, and which is frustrating to see. There's some guys who don't even need to do it. They're just they have that God-given ability in football. Mm-hmm. But the guys, I'll say this, and I think I'm super happy for him. I think he's a great guy. But someone who, reaps all the benefits that he's getting, and I see him put the work in. That's why I'm like so happy for him. Is Todd Gurley? I know he's a Georgia guy. I'll give him a break, but he's actually a really good guy, and he's one of the hardest working players I've ever played with.
Y'all developed a pretty good relationship. I remember a media day or a press day or something happened when.
Oh yeah, Georgia Tech beat Georgia. We had a little side wager where whichever team won the other person had to wear the other school's shirt and hat. And,
yeah, because
I saw Tech beat Georgia in the last minute, and I was like, yes, come on.
Yeah, Gurley was up there in the Georgia Tech hat, the Georgia Tech shirt. So
yeah, I told him, I was like, I'm going to try to convert you to a Tech fan.
But yeah, that shows you what type of guy he is.
I told him, I said, I got nothing but respect. You held through, you stayed strong, and he had way more media coverage, so for him to have to do it was way different. If I had to do it, it would just be around the guys. They'd be like, oh.
Yeah.
But he held through.
That's really cool. So it's good to hear. It's always good to hear some people that people look up to. Everybody's a good guy. I mean, you didn't have any problems with all. Everybody cares,
right.
And everybody's at the NFL because they all have the same goal.
Right.
Looking back now, if you could do stuff differently, what do you think you would do if you can go back and do things over again?
I mean, really, I'm pretty happy with the way things turned out. I mean, obviously, you can't control injuries. Obviously, if I could go back and not get injured, that would be ideal. But I would say probably from a younger age, just for trying to get recruited, I might have gone to more of like the regional testing, like Scout and Rivals, because they didn't have Huddle and all this stuff, or they might have had it, but it was like really new, so nobody really used any of that stuff. So if you don't do any of those camps, you don't really get any of the star ratings, and which that's a whole nother story. I really don't believe in the star ratings because I think I've seen plenty of kids who are 5 stars who are poo and really can't play.
And you've beat a lot of
right. I mean, and that, which is fine. But a lot of that's hype, and if you don't go to those camps, you really don't get the respect. So I might have done 1 or 2 of those just so I could have, gotten a little more respect. But
but that non-respect, like you said, and you're happy
where
you are.
Yeah. I think that helped carry me, all the way through.
Yeah, it's a prove 'em wrong mentality.
Mm-hmm.
You got to fight for it.
Right.
Just because someone doubts you, don't mean okay. I'm just going to pack my feelings up, put it in my pocket, and go on. You doubt me, I'm gonna show you, buddy.
Yeah. So. That's why I think there's a lot of kids who are, 4 and 5 stars who end up becoming bust. I think it's because they're told, they're the greatest thing the planet's ever seen, and they get there and they think, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to show up. I'm going to start. I'm going to play. I'm going to make it to the NFL and get paid.
Well, you'll hear. I've heard some strength and conditioning coaches at the collegiate level, especially at the D1 level. They got to recruit the guys because you're trying to make the guy feel good and get them in there. And once they're in there.
Oh, it's a different story. They'll tell you everything. Hey, we love you. You're the best. And then when you get there, it's like, look, you got to play.
And you got to work too.
Right.
We're not just going to hand you these jobs. And I think once they see or feel that adversity for the first time, they're kind of in shell shock.
Mm-hmm.
What do you? You've had life in the NFL. You're married with a kid. So what are you doing now outside of football?
Well, actually, I just jumped back into recruiting actually at Georgia Tech. Right now, it's just an internship. Hopefully, find something full time. Hopefully at Georgia Tech, but I want to do something around football. I'm also I'm applying for an FAA position to potentially get into air traffic. That's what my dad and my brothers do. But ideally, I'd like to stick around football.
Yeah, you can't help it. You've bred in it. You've done it your whole life, and and people will crack on Brett Favre several years ago when he come out of retirement, and some other players have done the same thing. I think Jordan even did it. It's you. If you put that much passion in it for this much time in your life, you can't help when that fall season comes around.
Well, that's the problem. So you kind of get through. You're like, all right, well, you kind of come to the realization. After I tore my Achilles, I try to make a comeback, and the problem is I just after a training session, I just feel like it feels weaker. It just doesn't feel. I don't feel as explosive. And if you can't go full speed, that's how you really get hurt. So like I said, with having wife and kid, I can't really afford to get.
And it's not worth it. You've had the experience,
right? I mean, I've gotten so much out of football that,
Now you're trying
I'm
to get
so
back.
lucky. Yeah, I mean, God's blessed me my whole life, really. And the biggest thing, I've seen kids who have the work ethic, can play, but unfortunately they don't have the size. And, it's something as little as that. Like, that's the one thing that stinks about football. Not because of the game, but because, it sucks to see a kid who really works hard and really, can play. But in recruiting, if you don't have the size, you just get overlooked. And there's so many kids out there vying for only so many spots that it's really hard to get. And unfortunately, that's just how it goes. If you don't have the size, you get crossed off the list almost immediately.
Speaking of that, what advice would you give to the young recruits?
Well, first I'd say, you got to stay eligible. So get in the classroom, study, make sure you're doing everything right.
Doing the stuff you don't want to do?
Right. Doing the stuff you don't, no, yeah. So, stay eligible, stay studying hard. Then I'd say, if it's something you really want to do, work on your craft every day.
Even if you don't feel like it, everybody's going to have those downtimes. Surround yourself with people that's going to pick you up.
Exactly. You need to have a core group.
Yeah, like even there's some days, I'd come in, out jump you, you would out jump me. There's some days say, Zach, I'm not doing it.
Right.
And
you're like, well, yes, you are.
Yeah, you are.
You are going to do it.
I'm glad I did when I did it, but I, if I'm hurting, I don't feel right. And
right. And
and sometimes you felt bad, and you'd actually have your best jump.
Right.
And I try to tell people, let the numbers tell you how you feel, not your freaking brain.
Right.
You got to learn how to set your brain outside the body and see what the body can do. If you're coming in there, feel crappy, and you get your best vertical jump, obviously you're not as worn out as what you thought you were. It's just how you feel. You feel bogged down and drained down, but I think the mats and the tendo units tell the real truth.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, because like you said, you feel crappy, but you're moving the weights the fastest you move it, you're jumping the highest you jumped. Obviously, that's more of a mental thing where you're just dreading coming in.
Yeah, but once you get the jumps, once we got you jumping 35s or higher, we got you 38. You never really lost much of it. Once you get it, you can pretty much maintain the jumps, right?
I mean, you remember when we would go and it would be like, oh, we're only going to jump for 20 minutes today. An hour and 20 minutes later, here we are still jumping because we're this close to getting a new PR or something. It's like, no, we're not stopping until we get it.
Yeah, that's the difference. Like with training, like with you and like Mike Hinderman, the guys I'm trying to get ready for the league, I'm going to try to jump, and we're going to jump till we break it, just like Longoria did.
Yep.
It's not, I didn't say we're just going to jump 8 sets of 3 or 10 sets of 1 on jumps.
Right.
We were there to beat a number.
Right. It wasn't, you're not doing sets. You're there to get a number, which is cool. And back to like when you're feeling crappy and really don't want to do it. I don't know if you feel this way, but like after I completed a workout, after I didn't want to do it, I'm like, man, I'm so happy I went and did that and, did it.
Yeah, I'm 10 times happier, because like if I'm going there, and sometimes when I go there and I do what I'm supposed to, that's what I was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go in there and you don't want to do it and you do it and you do better than you thought, it's like getting 10 times reward points.
Yep.
And so I think you've been a really great example for this community around here too. You've been a great example for the gym. Your stories are still told. So I hope and wish you the best of luck at Georgia Tech.
Well, I appreciate that. And, I'm thankful to have gotten to know you and have the experience of, being coached by you, because I think you're truly one of the best to ever do it. And anybody who ever asks me, I always tell them, Jared Bidney knows his stuff. Not only is he going to teach you, the right techniques and, how to get better, bigger, faster, stronger, but you also would help me with my diet plan, and that says a lot about you as a coach, that that both sides of it. So.
Yeah, and you're and actually it's funny, this week I've gotten 2 phone calls from people that know your dad.
Yeah. I know my dad still. Everybody, if anybody ever asks me, he's like, yes. If they ever say, hey, should we go to Explosive Mechanics? Absolutely. So it's one of the best.
I appreciate it, Zach. Do you want to give any of your social media out, or?
I'm really not too active. I don't have Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter.
D Laser.
At the Z Laser 37.
The old football stuff.
Yeah,
right?
the old football. I'm never changing that.
It's never going away.
And I guess if I really get into coaching, I'd probably
You're gonna have
change
to coach
it. But
Laskey,
to coach Laskey
or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool because it's kind of odd. You're on it. I've had Spieka on it, and I've had Ben Bag on it. A lot of them don't even use social media. The true grinders. And what I found, as far as the people what I've been talking to.
Yeah, and there's people, and that's how you like to do things. They want to post their progression. I prefer just to kind of stay in my own lane.
You want to fly under the radar because
Right.
once you get there, that's when sometimes the media posts can be exaggerated.
Well, exactly, and then if you go and post stuff and then or you say, hey, I'm going to do this and this, and then
And you
don't do it,
yeah,
it looks really bad. Where if I know, I don't need to tell people I'm going to do it. I'll just do it.
yeah.
I'll do it, and they can see it firsthand. And they can make whatever assumptions they want to make.
So, well, I think that's it for today, Zach. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
It's a good time.
good times, and thanks everybody for listening.
Yep, have a good one.